Bryan Johnson's girlfriend?
Kate and I met, I believe, around 5 years ago. We got into a relationship 3 years ago, and we've been working on it since. I guess I can model out in my mind what I think the reactions will be. There will be joy, there will be mocking, there will be hate. Like, there's going to be a little bit of everything, but by sharing this with others, it could be a good influence in others who are either looking for or working on their own relationship. When I was growing up, I would try to find marriages that I wanted to emulate, and they were hard to come by. Good relationships are really rare, and Kate is important to me because she really does feel like my other half. She feels like self. And when she hurts, I hurt. When I feel joy, she feels joy. The cool thing about our relationship is we don't have any expectations of each other, and we really value our conscious experience. We don't want to waste it in a misaligned relationship or in something that's not producing joy. So much of our lives are shared with each other, and I've been adrift looking for deep companionship. It's taken me basically my entire adult life to find this. And so for those of you who also have a vision for deep companionship, I would say keep at it. It may take longer than you think, but it's really not worth settling. And if you're in a relationship already and you're not feeling that deep commitment, I would commit to try to make it so that you can invest and can mature a relationship so you both get the deep joy that they offer. So it's worth hard work. It's worth the persistence that's required. And a lot of people are very quick to pull the eject button. And I think that it's worth the hard work to build these relationships. So I just say keep on going and do the hard work.
Bryan Johnson's a fellow biohacker, and he's chose a completely different path than I have. He's probably going to choose monogamy, and he waited a long time to find his perfect match. I took a different approach. I figured I couldn't find the perfect girl. I've been through thousands. I don't think Bryan Johnson has been through very many, just by my observation and estimation. I don't think he has a lot to compare to, and I think he was going mainly off of the vibe of the girl, which is one reason to find a partner and settle for the partner. I think he can reach a higher level of consciousness. He'll have a life partner. I think for his style, this is exactly what he should do, but it's not everybody's style. And his priority is joy and alignment and feeling like the relationship is effortless. The relationship doesn't take work, it's just easy. And that is all perfectly fine. There's definitely no one size fits all relationship, and there's lots of different types of relationships. For example, in some cultures, joy and happiness together is not the priority of a marriage. Sometimes it's finances, sometimes it's status. And you go to China and other countries like that, and there's nothing about joy and happiness, and that's not why you choose a partner. You choose a partner based on your financial status and position. Or if you're Indian, you find a partner based on who your family wants you to marry. Every culture is different. I think it's a good influence for Americans, though. I think it's a very positive relationship amongst a lot of really toxic relationships that we see in the media that are really bad influences on people to also get into toxic relationships. And probably the biggest relationship mistake that I see in America is people settling, just like Bryan Johnson said. He's glad he didn't settle. Although I don't think he had a lot of opportunities to settle, because I don't think he was really dating a lot or experienced a lot of women. I could be wrong, right? I mean, he's got unlimited money to be able to do that, but I think it was of no interest to him. No matter how much money you have, if you don't put the time and experience a lot of different women, then you're not going to understand female psychology, and you're not going to have a large pool of women to choose from. But wow, I mean, she seems to be like a perfect match for him, right? It seems like a really beautiful relationship. I think I never really had a relationship like that when I was younger. I had a lot of traumatic relationships that put me into, a very cynical approach to women, which is good because then I ended up in a lot of bad relationships after that. I guess I didn't like being lonely. Bryan Johnson wasn't lonely. He liked being alone. Bryan Johnson would rather be alone and not have sex for years, my impression, rather than be with someone who wasn't 100% what he's looking for as far as his joy partner and a partner in alignment with him and a partner that creates an effortless relationship with him. I think I saw her in previous videos in the very beginning. I think she was in the video. So I think she's been working with him for a long time. And he said that he's known her for 5 years, been with her for 3 years, but then he has a girlfriend now. So hasn't he had a girlfriend all along, or were they just kind of friends, taking it really slow? I have had friends like Bryan Johnson and that girl also who went years without sex because that wasn't the priority. And they secretly fantasized about having sex with each other, but they never did it. And the timing wasn't right. They weren't who they needed to be able to be in that romantic mode for each other. And, Bryan Johnson was focused on his business and building things, and now probably has a little bit more time that he can step back and spend time on a relationship, which ultimately might be his end goal. It'll be interesting to see how it affects his business and his work going forward, because some guys, when they do find, assuming he just started the sexual relationship more recently, he might divert some of his interest to that. I wonder, with the biohacking, if you're where I'm at, you could biohack your way to having pretty amazing sex to where it's really more spectacular than anything else in life. And then the problem in Bryan Johnson's situation is he's all about living as long as possible and, sacrificing performance in favor of longevity. But if he starts doing tantric sex on psychedelics with her, he might experience some level of consciousness and enlightenment that might change his opinion on longevity being the most important thing during this human experience. He might start thinking that maybe how long you're on Earth is not as important as how spectacular some of the moments are, and some of those moments perhaps do require some trade-off from longevity towards performance. So that'll be interesting. He took mushrooms. I was going to say microdosing mushrooms, but no, he took a flood dose of mushrooms the other day also. Actually, right after the mushrooms is when he announced that he had a girlfriend. So this is interesting, right? The timing of this. When you take mushrooms, it gives you a new perspective, probably a more accurate perspective on your life and your human experience. And so he probably realized he was obsessed about business, chasing something that isn't ultimately giving him what he's looking for, and that what he was looking for was something he could find inside this relationship. And while on mushrooms, he probably also experienced a level of consciousness and enlightenment, pleasure, joy, love, oneness that he had never experienced before. And then he realized, I want more of that. And the way to get that without substances is through tantric sex. That's the spectrum that we're on if we're going to go all the way there towards peak human experience. For a guy who's a billionaire and unlimited money, I think he's a billionaire, or he will be soon if he's not a billionaire. For a guy who's a billionaire, you can buy a lot of things in this world, but it is hard to buy the highest level of consciousness and enlightenment and love and oneness. And you can find that through the unity of masculine and feminine polarity and the oneness between that polarity, connecting yin and yang. So it sort of seems to me that maybe he had never experienced that before, and now he has experienced that, and that's going to change his perspective. If doing mushrooms is what changed his perspective, and now he's embracing this relationship more and being public about it and going deeper into it, then I'd say enjoy that for a while, Bryan Johnson, and then don't stop there. Just like you were comfortable with your life before you did mushrooms, and now mushrooms opened up a new door to a new series of human experiences. Mushrooms, Bryan Johnson did mushrooms, a lot of more mushrooms than you've ever done. He took more than you've ever taken. We're very careful with you. When some people have a little bit of schizophrenic tendencies and a lot of trauma, you got to be careful with the mushrooms. You got to inch them up in dosages. Your dosages are going up very slowly, and it's going to be a long time until I feel comfortable with you taking dosages that Bryan Johnson took. A long time. We'll get there eventually. Might be a couple of years though. But I'd say, Bryan, if you ever hear this, or for anybody that is at Bryan Johnson's level of mushrooms, I would say enjoy that, but don't get too comfortable. Know that there's more doors to open, and I'll be really curious if Bryan Johnson keeps going through these doors. And I think he will, because he did this and he got a positive response. I think it was good for his business, and he realized it's good for his life, and I don't think he's going to stop there. So this will be interesting to follow. I don't think the next layer of human consciousness is going to change his perspective on the relationship. I think he's going to lean more into the relationship, actually. And I'm excited to see it because I think he'll provide a lot of data about it. I think the more he wears like an EEG machine and the more he collects scientific data on the psychedelic experiences he has, the better. I'm hoping that maybe in the future he'll partner up with some of these guys studying quantum physics and, stuff at the highest levels, because that's where biohacking ultimately leads. You've got level 1 biohacking all the way up to, let's say, level 10 biohacking. Bryan Johnson, he's creeping his way up. He started at level 1 biohacking, then level 2, level 3. Now he's, at level 5 biohacking. I'd like to see Bryan Johnson go all the way to level 10 biohacking. I'd be rooting for him. I wish I would have connected with him earlier, because it's going to be harder and harder to connect with him as time goes on, because I would have loved to have helped him on this journey also and been another intellectual mind to run things by. That's why if we don't have access to Bryan Johnson, the rest of us have to communicate with each other and continue to help each other learn and continue to push each other just gently out of our comfort zones. That's why I say a day natural is a day wasted, because a lot of people are stuck at natural, thinking natural is good and natural is better and natural is noble, but it's not. And if anybody's watching Bryan Johnson, they've already accepted that natural is not better, because Bryan Johnson is to live, his entire goal is to live unnaturally long using unnatural means, basically. So we're already talking to an audience, hopefully, that's embracing natural's a day wasted, but it's a spectrum. Even after you accept that natural is not better, and then you accept the first class of compounds and supplements, then we go up to research chemicals and peptides, and then we go on to genetic engineering and psychedelics. It just keeps going. I used to try to push people to the further end of the spectrum faster, but then I realized maybe everybody's supposed to, in their own time, on their own journey, experience it. I think Bryan Johnson's journey, he's still got plenty of years ahead of him. I think he'll make it to the highest level of consciousness before he dies. It's no reason to absolutely rush it. The point is just not to get stagnant at any one level at any one time. Just gently be moving forward. Because after all, life is short and there's entropy. There's always chaos waiting to consume us and break us down, and we have to constantly work to not just maintain, but to improve and develop and to learn during our human experience. I'm excited for what comes with Bryan Johnson. I encourage him to go deeper into the relationship and deeper into biohacking, deeper into psychedelics, and see if he can do what I haven't been able to do yet, which is to maintain the highest levels of consciousness while fully experiencing all 5 senses in the material world here on Earth. I can do it for moments, but I haven't been able to do it, for consecutive hours during the day. But if he continues on this path, he'll figure it out. Or I'm always one step ahead as far as what I'm experimenting with. Perhaps I'll figure it out first, and then he'll follow with the data and bringing it to the mainstream. I'll continue to pioneer it. I'm at levels that I can't talk about sometimes publicly. And I'm grateful to people like Bryan Johnson, who are putting a lot of money into it and getting it into the mainstream to make it more acceptable and break the taboos, hopefully even get government support. That's a big uphill battle, but give government support for biohacking in general. And, turn the tide, win human freedom back, win individual expression back, win freedom of speech back, freedom to experiment on our own bodies, ownership of our own bodies, and embracing humanity instead of control and conformism.